All right, guys, it's a wonderful time of the year. It's playoff best ball season. Playoff contests are among us. And, not all of us were fortunate enough to win $2 million. Some of us still have to grind our cocks off to win $500,000. So happens that one of those people grinding their cocks off to win $500,000 is also the guy who won $2 million. But I digress. Tonight, we reveal the Boomer Opto. What are the boomers rolling out on FFPC? We will lay the groundwork for the contest, get you guys ready to win that $500K. Let's do it.
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your sight.
Jamar. Alpha play chase.
Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally this boys. You're right.
All right, bringing out all the big guns tonight. We got Ben Gretsch, Pat Carrain. We got the stat chasing guys, Drico and Sam, and we have the Boomer Opto revealer himself, Hassan. How are you guys doing?
Did anybody hear Pat laughing behind the cold open?
Why wasn't I muted?
I don't know, but it was great. It was perfect.
That's actually been a StreamYard shift in the past 6 months that your guys' noise has bled through my cold open. So thank you for not saying anything ridiculous during that.
Well, you can tell I was very tickled by it.
Real quick, Hassan, how long have you been in the lab? We will in a little bit reveal the Boomer Opto. I just want to know kind of like your process, your preparation. Have you been slaving over this?
Yeah, we've been in the lab for about a month, right? So the process is pretty arduous. So you have to understand, boomers are old. They're just sort of not all there mentally, right? So there's a lot of cognitive decline that you need to inhibit on yourself. You have to force it on yourself.
So you're like a
cognitive decline on yourself.
Yeah, like reverse training camp. Like you're trying to get in worse shape.
Yeah, you have to be like pounding beers. If you're not waking up every day just hungover, then you're just not gonna get there, man. You're not gonna get there.
No fruit.
It's just
borderline scurvy if possible.
You gotta have like a steady diet of chicken fried steak and 18 Miller High Lifes. All right.
I think both are on the menu at Sizzler, so far
they
so
are.
Good. Yeah.
Drico, Sam, how are you guys doing? Of course, for those of you who don't know, our stat chasing brethren doing great work on the channel all season long. Sam, we were all pulling for you to win Best Ball Mania 3. Sucks that someone else won it. You had 2 bullets. Sam, your advance rates to the semis and the finals was some of the most batshit crazy stuff I've ever seen.
Yeah, I really ran hot there for a second. I had 9 teams in the semis and then 2 in the finals. But the amount of congratulations I've gotten over the last week for coming in 176th, then 239th place in BBM4 or in BBM3 has really been amazing. So I want to thank the community for really recognizing that.
How flat would you say
it's a
the
supportive
payout
community?
structure
I have
is?
to say.
It's a pretty flat payout structure.
Yeah, it's very flat. I can't quite crunch the numbers on it, but I got close to the 2 million that Pat netted. It was very, very close to that.
Drico, you had a couple sweats in the FFPC. You were going to defend your crown in the best ball tournament, correct?
Yeah, so I got 2 teams to the final. Really happy to do that. Some of them they were carrying some injuries for sure, but still the opening rounds for both of them went really well. So was hoping. One of those teams did have Derrick Henry, so wiped out immediately. Happy to finish 20th in a title defense. It's literally a set of steak knives, but 20.
A nice set of steak knives.
Yeah, that's true. It's very, very nice set of steak knives. But
yeah,
I was dreaming. It's one of those things where because everything worked out so perfectly last year, I was almost primed. Okay, it's gonna happen again. When I had to talk myself down. No, you got very lucky last year. That's not the normal experience.
Well, that's only Go Bills get to win back to back. That's
Unreal.
that's
Unreal.
right. But
yeah,
that's
John
put it
actually
in,
messaged me before that. and we were like comparing teams and stuff like that. So that was fun.
Yeah. And again, like just to reframe it, I mean, both of you guys to have 2 bullets in those main contest finals is absurd. Speaks to how well you guys drafted your fantasy teams and how sharp you guys are. So congratulations to both of you. Ben Gretsch, it's a beautiful time of the year. Are you in the lab? Are you ready for playoff challenge week?
I wouldn't say I'm totally in the lab. I'm ready. We didn't do the first look with Davis. I haven't looked through Pat's ownership projections yet. I think this episode is where I'm going to get ready. This is the moment. You know, I want to see these ownership projections.
This is the lab.
I want to think through it. This is the lab. I want to, in real time, digest some of these team breakdowns, positional breakdowns. There's obviously so many ways to think about this contest. It's so much freaking fun. It's a very unique contest, and we love it around here.
Pat, can you give for people who maybe aren't initiated? I'm going to assume a lot of our audience has played this contest over the years. We generally do multiple shows every year. We've been playing it for, 5, 6, 7+ years. But can you give a TLDR kind of overview on what this contest is? Because it's both on the surface, very simple, and yet you can go down the rabbit hole and spend hours and hours on it.
Yeah, this I think is a very fun contest because the rules are super simple, which means kind of the strategy elements are really about the game theory, not understanding the contest itself, which is very simple, but understanding how everyone else is going to play the contest. And that's where you can go down the rabbit hole. But the rules of the contest are that you're filling out an expanded FFPC lineup. So you've got quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, a tight end, kicker, defense, 4 flexes, not 2 with the normal format because we have to cover all these playoff teams. That still leaves 2 teams that you are not selecting in the playoffs. The way we talk about these is that you essentially are selecting those teams. You're selecting them as your fade, your first fade and your second fade. I think it's important to think through which teams you're leaving off because the field often really, really condenses on those teams, the teams that they just aren't selecting anyone from. We also talk about the kicker and the defense as being a soft fade as opposed to the hard fade of just leaving the teams off. Because if you have a kicker and a defense as a team, then you don't want that team to advance. And then the key rule here that I should have already said is that you only select 1 player from each team. You can only, when you're filling out this lineup, you can only pick 1 player from any individual team. And Super Bowl is worth double points.
And that I think there's, the meme, the like Galaxy Brain meme with this contest. I think there's like the levels to it, right? Where it's like, just play the best plays. Oh, then start to look at projected points. And then like the third level is start to layer on various Super Bowl scenarios and playoff bracket scenarios on top of those other elements. And then there's also an ownership angle and yada, yada. So depending on how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole, which we are going to go very deep down it this week, you will have a good time. But I feel like the bedrock for attacking this contest is knowing what is the most likely lineup for the field. The hand builders, the boomers at the Sizzler pulling up their tablet because Lord knows the font isn't big enough on their phone to view this team and building a lineup. And that's where we really tap into Hassan. And I think I saw something revealed before the show because Pat, of course, crunches his ownership numbers for this, but you and Hassan arrived on the same Boomer Opto independently.
We did. And right before the show, I thought I'm wrong. I have the wrong quarterback. I need to switch this. So I switched to quarterback and scrolled down to see what Hassan was doing. Because I have in the same sheet, I was building one, Hassan's below. I scrolled down and it's the exact same lineup.
There you go. So Hassan, set the table for us here before we start to do, we hand the envelope over you to do the reveal. You mentioned a little bit of your process hanging out at the Sizzler. What else are you trying to do to get in the mind of an FFPC grinder for this contest?
So the easiest way really is to look at like recent performance and like average points per game, right? It should just give you an idea of like, yes, no, yes, right? And that really is, I mean, when we unveiled this concept a few years ago, it was like dead on the money, right? Like like if you guys remember, like there were a lot of people in the chat saying that's my lineup or I've got something very similar, right? so like, we've come so far just from the concept of pivots. But there's going to be people who just really believe in playing the best plays, right? Like, how can you go wrong with this comfortable feeling? I just want to shove in a bunch of teams that look like this and just sweat them out.
Hassan explaining the Boomer Opto while his video lags
Lags.
like a true Boomer is
Yeah,
super
You can't tell me this isn't part of the bit. I mean, it's good.
The only other framing I want to do before we get into this is acknowledging that the Boomer Opto these days might just be closer to the Opto.
It might
because
just be the Opto.
It might just be the Opto because over the years we've seen in our drafts the piss boys are more prevalent. People are more willing to jam these wide receivers. We don't have Derrick Henry in these playoffs. There's a lot of things, Hassan. Would you say you felt a little bit of a wind shift here of how the Boomers are approaching these contests?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's like a handful of running backs who we all know and love that we wish the Boomers would be picking. And I just couldn't find a way to put them into the lineup. Like I just couldn't in my initial run, I was like, maybe Mixon makes sense. And that's just not going to happen. Right. Like, it's just like, even when you say it out loud, it's just one of those, okay, it feels wrong to put it out there because I don't think that that's the route that people are going to go anymore.
Yeah. And, that's a dynamic too. And I've listened to a few podcasts already too. And like the Galaxy Brainers are almost more of a dominant cohort than the Boomers at this point. And so I will say, Pat, I think last year your ownership projections were so dialed in. I almost feel like this year is going to be trickier because I think this year, for the first time, you're going to experience a little bit of what we experienced in the DFS streets with a game of leveling. And like I've already heard everyone talk about T. Higgins being a pivot on Jamar Chase. And like to the point where I'm like, holy shit, are we going to flip over the cards in T. Higgins? Now, I don't think that's actually going to happen in FFPC, but I'm just saying that dynamic is there more than it's ever been any other year.
That is interesting because the chalk has historically really, really condensed in this tournament, which is one of the reasons that I like it so much because it's kind of like an old GPP. Like it's the last GPP that hasn't been destroyed by all the leveling. It's like everyone kind of plays like a cash lineup in this top heavy tournament. This is a tournament. You're trying to finish very first, and the payouts fall off pretty considerably, pretty quickly. I will mention.
What do you know about finishing first in tournaments?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I should mention it is FFPC, so it is tight end premium. Someone in the chat knows.
Are the payouts nice up there when you get up there?
I would recommend finishing first. That is the way to do it.
Drico and Sam, any other final thoughts here before Hassan and we start to go position by position through the Boomer Opto? Just kind of other macro takeaways for this contest?
One thing and this is more of a question than a take I have, but so the contest size is for the $200 entry is like 7,800 entrants, and you're picking like 12 positions, right? So I'm curious, like, how much are you guys, in terms of ownership, are you worried more about like duplicates, or do you just want to have like more unique plays in general? Because I guess I was just trying to like crunch the math, like, how likely are duplicates to be a problem in this tournament? This
lineup will be duplicated. I feel pretty strong that when we reveal the Boomer Opto, it's not going to.
There are lineups that are duplicated pretty heavily, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I mean, because of the way that ownership condenses, unless Pete's right, in this year there's a lot of leveling and all that, but in the past, ownership is condensed enough that there have been certain lineups that have duplicated quite a bit. And then the ones that are one or two pivot, like the old way of playing a GPP, the way that I liked to play in 2015 was like, I'm going to get that 1-2% player and I'm going to stick him in there and then play all the chalk this week and it's going to win. And like a lot of people are still doing that here.
Let's back up and talk about last year for a second. And talk about there was a number of players that were at least 40% owned. It looks like 7, 8, 9, 10. There's like 11 players that were 40% plus owned. So that's a lot of like very chalky pieces. If you think about like a DFS lineup, like any player 40% owned in a DFS contest would be massive chalk. Stephon Diggs, the New England defense, Rob Gronkowski, Joe Mixon were all between 40 and 50. Derrick Henry, Travis Kelce, not picking Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh full fade, were all between 50 and 60. Deebo Samuel was 64%. The Philly fade was 74%. Devontae Adams, 77%. And Cooper Kupp was on 91% of rosters.
That was too low owned. Just want to point that out.
I was pitching 100% for him last year for us.
I projected 88% and I undershot it. So yeah, I mean, I think when you have that level of chalk with that many different pieces, you do run into dupes.
All right.
Got it.
Hassan, Draco, did you have any other macro thoughts on the contest?
I did have one thought that I do think a lot of the top quarterbacks this year also have teammates that could. So obviously, with the idea with the quarterbacks is that you want the one that goes to the Super Bowl, and a lot of them have teammates that could reasonably outscore them in a one-game sample, like Stephon Diggs. You've got Travis Kelce, AJ Brown. Like all players that in a one game, they could be such a high percentage of their production that I do think that's like I'm not sure how typical that is, but I do think that is an interesting kind of.
No, that's really interesting. I remember last year there was a pretty strong possibility Josh Allen could wind up being the QB in the. Did he end up being the QB in the winning lineup? Do we have the winning lineup? I haven't seen it yet from last year. But they lost in the second round, and he was good enough in his two games that even like Burrow vis-a-vis Chase had the potential for Chase to be the play for the Bengals and Kupp to be the play for the Rams and Allen to be the quarterback. I see what you're saying. I mean, there's interesting ways to think through this as a result of the way that every year's a little bit different, but it's a good point that this year at QB has that tie-in with some
like I know Sean's article today, he said you could do like a Josh Allen, Travis Kelce, which I think that's the most like easily envisioned kind of like combo.
Mm-hmm.
But the other guys I mentioned, I can still see that as well.
Yeah. And there you can go down the line. You can come up with 6 or 7. And if you do think of it just through the lens of best play relative to ownership, and then how many projected points, like assuming you're using just an expected games model, like if you do that calculation for the thing that's so interesting about this contest, right, is if you project someone to play 4 games, right, like the best player on that team is most likely to score the most points over a 4-game sample. But the smaller you shrink that sample, 3 games, 2 games, 1 game, the more likely it is that an ancillary piece or a random one-off piece is to outscore the other guy. Yeah. And so that's where it gets really fun to start to look at the ownership of some of these guys who might only play 1 game, 2 games, knowing variance can kick in and submarine a massive ownership number. Mm-hmm.
That would be my big macro thought on this is a lot of times in any of these types of contests, we say they're like a GPP and DFS. One of the biggest parts of DFS GPPs is how you can try to limit the things you have to get right. And you can correlate with stacks and bring backs and the way mini correlations. You can maybe just have like 3 games be what you're really playing in your whole lineup. You can't do that here. It feels a little bit like a 12-sided parlay, right? Like they're all independent things. But when you really script it out and you do what Pete's just described and you try to play out a bracket and think about where your contrarian pieces are going, you're really playing those teams to lose early, because then it's more likely to be high variance for that team's production. If They lose early, then their opponent is winning. So how does that impact your opponent and what you're playing for them? One of the really good early teams we had in this, Pat, was when you explained a path in the NFC in Cam Akers' rookie season, I want to say it was 2021. And it was if the Rams won and a different result in the other NFC wildcard game happened, the Rams would have not only a good running back matchup in the first round, they would go to Green Bay, which was a really good second round running back matchup. And so we played some teams where we played Akers, who was low owned in that, and specifically paired that with a different matchup in the other NFC wildcard game because it created a better matchup for Akers in the second round. And so we're trying to correlate within this lineup that ostensibly isn't correlated, but that you can do that a little bit when
it's like how does Akers smash? And Akers probably smash because they beat the Seahawks. He gets a second game. He gets against a run funnel, bad run defense, and then it's like, man, you had to have Akers. So we basically envisioned the scenario in which you had to have Akers and built a lineup that reflected that. I in that same vein, I would also say, like, think about, like, if you're making, like Derrick Henry the year before that, like, if you were betting on the Titans to make a run, it's like the only possible way that a team like the Titans was going to make a run is if Derrick Henry is going off. So if you're you might want to fade, I forget, like, I think they beat Baltimore in the second round. I forget who. I think they played the Patriots in the first round. So, like, you probably want to fade the Patriots because, like, you don't want to go play it as a shootout, Derrick Henry and a Patriot, because Derrick Henry's rolling. He's steamrolling, right? So you got to think through, I think, those outcomes. I do have
Try to correlate.
Try to correlate, yeah. I have the winning roster from last year via Fantasy Mojo.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
So this is Fantasy Mojo. Shout out to his site, which is always invaluable.
So what's
Josh Allen, yeah, Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon.
2 games.
3 tight end build, Goddard, Schultz, Kelsey.
People do
A.J.
forget
Brown.
that it is tight end premium.
People forget. I forgot to mention
You can never forget.
Our big leverage point last year was to flex tight ends. We did that in a lot of our lineups. But
Do
this
you have
was
our
not
lineup from
team.
last year? I think we had a strong finish as the Penta.
Okay. We are going to build one live at the end of this stream. All right. Hassan.
Oh, wait, this is ours. I just found ours. The Lost Generation Opto. Here it is.
there we
So
go.
this finished 18th. Josh Allen,
finished
Aaron Jones, Lost Generation Opto.
I can't wait when we're naming it this year.
AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Cooper Kupp, Debo, Jamar, Mike Evans. This is kind of fun. I like that.
Tyler Beaker, actually, if you scroll up, he actually overtook us briefly. He was very briefly coming in first, I remember last year.
There he is.
Can I-
8th place.
I have enough distance from this event, but I do just want to say Tyler auto drafted a main event team
And beat us.
And beat us.
and
It was a heavy, robust RB team too, right?
He- I do just want I know I'm stumbling through this, but I just want to say we were the only team in the main event that had a Derrick Henry and Justin Jefferson. But Tyler's auto drafted team did do better than us.
That was so
All right.
bad.
All right, Hassan, do you want to go position by position, or do you want to go in like descending order from highest owned? Like, how do you want to go about this?
Let's just go position by position because I think it's easier to just sort of talk through why it makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the guy who Pat and I came like in the nth hour. Him and I both got on him is Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen.
Okay.
Right,
Speak on that.
This is like the easiest path to 4 games played, rushing upside, Konami code, quarterback and Pat mentioned the neutral site game. It's going to be in a lot of high powered shootouts if they make it past the Finns this weekend, right? And so, which I mean, frankly, they probably will be 9.5 point faves and at home. So you get all of that together, and like it's just fireworks. Like it's really hard to not see a 4 point like a 4 game streak here for Josh Allen. Currently, I was looking at Vegas futures before we got on, and the Buffalo Bills have the second shortest odds after the Chiefs as Super Bowl champs. And I think people will just sort of plug and set and forget type of thing.
Because
And
really,
that 4th game is really sweet. You obviously want those double points in the Super Bowl, but Allen is the only quarterback who you feel great about who gives you a 4th game.
Yeah, Mahomes and Hurts both getting buys.
Yeah.
Mahomes and Hurts buys, and when you think about the different positional stuff, like you think about Kelsey pulling from Mahomes, you think about AJ Brown pulling from Hurts. I mean, Diggs is obviously a great player, but people just have in their head that the Bills spread the ball around, and the comfiest click on the Bills is by far Josh Allen. So very much agree with that, Hassan.
I mean, after this conversation, I'm ready to go to the Sizzler. Start making some Josh Allen teams.
Yeah. Hassan, what's our next pick here?
This is Pat's boy, Austin Eckler.
That's right.
Pat's guy. I mean, this is really easy. I would like
Eckler can't get the punt.
And if you really needed like more reasons for why Eckler makes sense, like the fact that Mike Williams was carted off due to the Chargers just playing all their starters in a meaningless game. I mean, look, like you can see like week one, well, not week one, but wildcard weekend, especially against the Jags, is just god awful run defense. Like Eckler can get 15 targets and put up, basically like 200 yards from scrimmage with 2 scores, right? So this is an easy one.
I think he's the only like non-quarterback that's leading his team in PPR scoring too. So to your point, I saw a lot of people just looking at scoring, like the fact that Eckler is outscoring Herbert and no other running backs are doing that to their quarterback. I think just makes him an obvious clip.
So Hassan, I'll play a little devil's advocate here just to sharpen your boomer Opto knives that Dricka won in the FFPC contest. I think there's a ton of steam right now on the Jags. The line moved from +2.5 to Jags +1. I wouldn't be surprised to see it as a pick 'em by kickoff. Do you think any of this Jags steam pushes people off of Eckler, or do you think people will be content to play this both ways because it has the second highest projected total on the wild card slate?
There was actually some reverse line movement before we hopped on. It's back to +2 right now.
Oh my goodness, Hassan
my
grinding
goodness.
the lines more than me. All
We're,
right.
we're out here looking at that. No, I mean, both of these teams have incredibly forgiving run defenses, right? So I think that because Eckler again has just such a high target floor, and the fact that he is just a force to be reckoned with in the open field, like I really can't see people not wanting to have Eckler in their lineup. Like people will talk themselves into he's going to give me a 35-point game and go out, or I'm going to get 95 points from him. Something to that extent, right? Like if the Chargers make a run, so they're going to like create this massive like range where they've got their base or like their base case set like a very high output.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other thoughts on the Eckler pick here?
He had a legendary season, right?
I mean, I think it was fine. I wasn't that impressed by Austin Eckler this year. I mean,
No, he did. He cleared the threshold. I was on mute, but he did have a legendary season.
The only other thing I just one thing on Eckler, it's a small sample, but and this is maybe like a case to fade him more so than like a case against him being in the boomer Opto. But if you look at weeks 14 to 17, which I think are the only games that both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen were healthy this year, Eckler only had a 13% target share, which is obviously still very good for a running back, but it's certainly lower than his season total.
Very fortunate to have him when those two players were injured so often then, right?
Well, and also like I think the Evans back or the Mike Williams back stuff is meaningful. It's like so much harder to stomach fading Austin Eckler if you're worried about him not being fully healthy.
Yeah,
that's
true.
very real because he was carted off. Like I don't know if he plays.
Nobody's
playing.
Back spasms 1 week ago. Hell no.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll save it for later in the week to convince Pat on air to say that Austin Eckler is a fade in this contest. Hassan, let's keep going.
This is everybody's favorite injured running back, Christian McCaffrey. Like this one's just, I mean, this is like the easiest. Like I know you guys over at Stealing Lines put out CMC to lead the entire playoffs in rushing yards, didn't you? At plus 180 to 1. Or am I
80 to 1?
No, that sounds too high.
That seems way too high.
That feels aggressive.
Plus
plus
1800.
81.
Yeah, I feel like they added there's a zero added there.
Yeah, there's a I messed up with my decimals.
That was
about to
Dalton's
log
first
off and
play
get
of the playoffs. I liked it too.
There really is the only guy that I think can really pull some ownership from CMC is Kittle because of the tight end premium scoring. Kittle has played extremely well down the stretch, although I think you could argue some of that is correlated with Deebo Samuel being out. Now we have Deebo Samuel fully healthy. He was fully healthy for week 18. I am curious where the CMC versus Kittle ownership falls, and we'll get to that later in the week. But CMC clearly going to be the jam of all jams. And Hassan, I would say if we're hearkening back to boomers jamming the highest ceiling running backs, I mean, they're going to love Eckler and CMC in tandem.
Yeah, this is like pretty much like the way I think a lot of boomers are going to be feeling comfortable, but they're not done yet. You know what I mean? Like everybody, like from a wide receiver position, and this is great just seeing, because like the easiest one here is the inclusion of the easiest is just Justin Jefferson, right? Justin Jefferson, like, I mean, there was a not too long ago where we thought he was going to be the 101, and I don't think that has really changed. And I think that people are just going to be very much on him.
He's struggling to
skills are unrivaled.
Embrace
this
the
is
bit.
truly the boomer
The one thing I will say too, people saying, I don't know if CMC is the easiest. Like if you look at other sentiment indicators, you look at where CMC is going in gauntlet drafts, he will routinely go 101, even over some of the quarterbacks. He's the third. His ADP right now is 103. People fucking love CMC. They are bought into the ceiling. They are bought into the 49ers. People are even acknowledging that Eli Mitchell will get some work, but the market has zero concerns about CMC in this 49ers team right now.
Yeah, what Dalton actually took was CMC to win Super Bowl MVP at 18-1. Which,
that's the one. All right.
And then he also took, I'm giving away plays here, but also took Elijah Mitchell most rushing yards in the playoffs, which could happen. CMC still probably outscores him, right? Like that. But the idea is there's a lot of rushing from San Francisco on any San Francisco playoff run, and they have a potentially very favorable path. Anyone looking anywhere into this, looking into the bracket, are going to say, you know, I like San Francisco to make a little bit of a run here. And how are they going to do it? They're going to do it through their running backs.
Hassan, did you have any other thoughts on Justin Jefferson? Because this feels like near Cooper Cup levels last year, where people are going to feel fine about him in Viking Super Bowl runs. They're going to feel fine about him in, you know, losing even to the Giants. They'll be willing to play that as kind of a shootout. I mean, there's no holes to poke in his sky high ownership.
No, and I think really what has failed to drag any ownership away from Jefferson has been Dalvin Cook's absolute faceplant of a season. Like he has had a fairly rough go of it of late. I mean, if Dalvin Cook had anywhere closer to a bigger season than he did have, maybe you could have still seen a 75% Justin Jefferson, but there's nothing stopping the Cooper Cup train.
Well, TJ Hawkinson, right?
Yeah, I mean, but even when you try to shove, I mean, the only thing that you can really get into TJ Hawkinson is if you're saying that the Vikings are going to win, and then Hawkinson is going to reprise his ridiculous performance from the last time these two teams played.
Yeah,
that's the only way you can actually really draw macro ownership away from Justin Jefferson.
The one thing no one's going to do, it's kind of interesting because Jefferson's going to be really high owned, but no one's actually going to want to play the Vikings to win. But if they do win, and go on a run, what if the Vikings make the Super Bowl, right? Like nobody thinks that's possible, but it's actually probably more possible than people are actually going to think. And yet Jefferson's going to be really highly played. And if they go to the Super Bowl, you're probably playing Jefferson on this.
You probably want Jefferson. Yeah, I think we'll get to some of this stuff, but there's certain teams where there's really, you don't even have to put that much thought into it. I actually just raised Jefferson up after Pete made that stance, because I had a little dabble with Dalvin, and I'm like, I think you're right. I don't think anyone's playing anything, but maybe Hawkinson. Hawkinson might get a little just for the tight end flexibility.
The tight end point is a good point, but just to give you another data point, like in these gauntlet drafts, like in the initial gauntlet draft, I mean, Dalvin Cook was going more at like the 2-3 turn to a lot of Jefferson teams. Kirk Cousins was going high. Justin Jefferson's ADP has not budged in these latest gauntlet drafts, but Dalvin Cook and Kirk Cousins are major fallers right now. And the market is down on this team, but they're not down on Justin Jefferson. And I think the comp for me this year for Justin Jefferson, I saw someone in the chat say CMC is this year's Cooper Kupp. I would say Justin Jefferson is this year's Deebo Samuel, and that he feels comfy in either scenario. Either way you play it, as a loss or a win, Justin Jefferson is that click that
Right.
feels good.
And on the tight end point as well, just looking at some of Pat's ownership numbers we're going to get to, and just looking at the tight ends that are available. We have Kelsey, we have Andrews, we have Goddard, we have Evan Ingram, who obviously had the great close to the season. George Kittle, same thing. Schultz, Hawkinson, Dawson Knox. I mean, there's a lot of really good tight ends in the playoffs. This is the same thing as last year. We said there's a lot of really good tight ends. Somebody tell Arthur Smith that the teams that use their tight ends go to the playoffs, because all the best tight ends are in the playoffs every freaking year. Why can't the Falcons use their tight end? Sorry.
All right, Hassan, take us to the next wide receiver.
Yeah, you guys mentioned him earlier as like this is what happens when you don't play Jalen Hurts. I mean, it's AJ Brown.
Speak on that.
I mean, just the coolest motherfucker in the NFL, man. Like, he's just so cool.
How
how
close? Here's a question for you, Hassan. How close is the 2v2 Jalen Hurts, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, AJ Brown? Like, how close actually is that? Or is it a runaway Josh Allen, AJ Brown?
No, that's a flip. I think because Pat and I both in our original Boomer Opto runs had Jalen Hurts, Stephon Diggs.
Okay.
And this is one that we came up both independent of each other again, because we're like on the same Google sheet, but we're putting these lineups completely independently of each other at different times.
Yeah. Well, this was the thing. It just hit me like, it's not going to be Hurts because last year we saw the winning lineups get there with Allen without going to the Super Bowl. And with the shootouts and everything, the people are going to be so excited to play Allen. And then there's a chance he gets to the Super Bowl with the neutral site game, the double points. It's so appealing. And while I think Diggs will probably be more owned than Brown, I don't know that the most duped lineup, I think, will have Allen. I think Allen will ultimately have more ownership than Hurts.
I think maybe
it is the simplest point here. I'll let you go. Just Nate saying Boomers will want the QB for 4 games. Like that will be the tiebreaker to push people to Allen over AJ Brown.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good point. I think it's close. Like maybe my pushback here would be if you go Josh Allen, I think like the drop down from AJ Brown to Devonta Smith is like pretty close, and a lot of people will do that. Whereas if you go with Jalen Hurts, like nobody's picking Gabe Davis or Singletary over Diggs. You know what I mean? Like the Eagles will be relatively more spread out. Whereas the Bills, if you don't pick Allen, it's going to be so much Diggs. So that's like the only case where I can see this going the other way.
The Hurts version of this will be duped as well, I think.
Yeah, it'd be it's pretty much the second most common lineup in my opinion as well. Like I think because Pat and I came up with an almost identical second pivot off of like our initial run was with Hurts and Diggs, and it's not until you factor in that 4-game bump.
Yeah, I think
that's what puts Allen over.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that the other Eagles players will keep AJ Brown in check relative to these other players?
Not if they make a run, in my opinion, but certainly could if they're one and done or even 2.
Well, I just mean like Justin Jefferson feels like a really obvious, like he's a slam dunk pick, whereas AJ Brown and Devonta Smith have like ping pong games.
Yeah.
So like, could they be really close in ownership? Like,
and his QB is a lot more playable. Obviously, Hurts over Cousins, and then I think Goddard is more playable than Hawkinson. So I think you're onto something there. I think AJ Brown will lose ownership to other Eagles.
I think Hawkinson's. I don't know. I think he's very playable. Yeah, it's a way to bet on the Vikings to lose.
Right.
Yeah,
but compared to Devonta Smith, though.
Yeah.
I'll also say, like, again, using the underdog playoff ADP is kind of like a sentiment indicator because of Miles Sanders basically having 2 dud games these past weeks, or actually 3 if you go all the way to extend to the Dallas game. He has been dropping in drafts, and Devonta Smith has like slipped a little bit, but I don't think Miles Sanders is going to carry much ownership at all. I think people are completely out on it. I think the Galaxy Brainers will be on Devonta Smith, but I still think AJ Brown will be a dominant click for most people.
That's a good breakdown.
Yeah. There was like a 1 week period where like I think the worst fantasy accounts on Twitter were all like, well, why aren't you on Miles Sanders? And like it's ever since then it's been like running back 3+ at best, right?
All right, Hassan, do the free square here at tight end.
Yeah, I mean it's actually the boomer himself, Travis Kelce.
Hmm. Speak on that.
So, I think he genuinely it was such a bad year for tight ends that, like, even though Kelce didn't exactly come close to his own career highs, he just lapped the field to such a degree that it's just impossible to fathom him not being there. I mean, I think about when you're making DFS lineups and, like, you see how high Kelsey's salary is relative to everybody. It's like Kelsey $7,800, TJ Hawkinson $4,900. Oh my god! Like, it's just that, you know.
It really the only, I guess, what Patrick Mahomes could pull a little bit. Jerick McKinnon, I mean, he is not going to feel like a good click. I mean, who can pull from Travis Kelce right now?
Mahomes.
None of the wide receivers. You're not. I mean, you're not. There's where you can click on Juju or Kadarius Stoney. Like Kadarius Stoney or any of the other like auxiliary guys. No way. Jerick McKinnon. No way. Pacheco.
Sky Moore.
I have Pacheco, I think, at 1%.
Yeah, Pacheco 1, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody. It's like what I have Juju at 2, McKinnon at 8.
Kelsey
Mahomes
used
at
to be
21.
Kelsey used to be massive in this contest when he had Tyreek Hill on his team, and Tyreek Hill was like the
Tyreek Hill was a Galbrain pivot,
right?
A couple years.
Yeah.
And CEH was a better running back plan. People were like, we could play him a little bit, but Kelsey would still be massively owned. We're in a situation now with the Chiefs where Kelsey's ownership, like, it's Mahomes, is the only thing that can stop it.
Mahomes is the only thing. Yeah.
It's the only thing. And I mean, you can listen to shows. I've heard it multiple times. Like, people already talking about their redraft strategy next year. Travis Kelce or punt. Travis Kelce or punt. Like, the sentiment is so strong here. I had a thought earlier today, and I was going to ask you guys, and maybe this is a conversation for a later show this week, but, like, if you're playing a tight end to do more than go one and done, you know, I think there's tight ends you can play in one and done scenarios. What other tight end do you even play in a Super Bowl run other than Travis Kelce? Like, is anyone even in the conversation?
I think Goddard is.
Goddard's the only one.
That's why I was saying Goddard over Hawkinson a little bit. Is like, I think Goddard can actually be the guy over multiple games for them.
I think Kittle's kind of out because he can't. Yeah, I don't know if he can outscore CMC though in a Super Bowl run.
Yeah,
especially with Debo back.
This is the thing. I think people like. I like Kittle, but everything we've seen from Kittle is spike weeks and random things. The more games you tack on to the Niners, the more likely it is a CMC or Debo outscores him. Same with Goddard in the Eagles. I think this is the only one I would entertain. If the Jags go to the Super Bowl, I could see Ingram being the optimal.
Me too. And also, like, you don't need your tight end to go to the Super Bowl, and a run for the Jags might mean 2 games.
I would disagree with this slightly in the sense that the tight ends in these cases, like Kittle, don't have to be the highest scorer on their team. They have to separate from tight end more than the other. So, like, Kittle doesn't have to outscore CMC if there's other good running backs that score. If they're the only team with a good running back who makes a run, and obviously there's only a couple teams that make a run in the playoffs. Most teams are one and done, frankly, or half the teams. Kittle can be, with one spike week, can be the clear tight end if there's really no other good tight end,
And
but if you're giving up the CMC, then there's another tight end that does, like, decently well enough, you're going to be competing against CMC.
I'm saying if CMC beats him by 10 and the tight end benchmarks
you could be totally fine.
Yeah. I do. Yeah. It just, I think just knowing how people are coming out of this season, how they think about the tight end, the only thing that is helping offset it is the tight end surge to end the season, having Evan Ingram, TJ Hawkinson, put up these big games. Kittle, like, it has put at least the seed in people's head, like, hey, they could string this together. Whereas if that didn't happen, like if weeks 13 through 17 didn't happen, I mean, Kelce would be at 100% ownership.
Might be.
All right, Hassan, take us to flex territory here.
Yeah, so we're gonna we were talking about this with Austin Eckler, but we're gonna run this back here with the other running back on the other side, which is Travis Etienne. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts because Etienne has given up some rushing production and some, like, key rushing work to JaMychal Hasty in recent weeks. But I still think that people have it in their heads. I mean, ETN is a fantastic rusher, fantastic catcher of the ball. Is he will be playing against another bad rush defense in the Chargers. So I really don't see. I see him catching the most ownership on the Jags relative to the pivots that want, like Christian Kirk or Evan Ingram. I think this is where I think ETN catches the most ownership.
You put Zay Jones on there as a joke, but isn't he unironically like a really nice way to play them as a one and done, as their like higher A dot guy?
I think Ingram might be the best way because
I think Ingram might be the best.
I think Ingram,
like Mahomes to Ingram is fun.
That's why, for the way I'm thinking about the Jags, just as of this moment, is that Kirk and Ingram are a sick place. That's just kind of where.
I think Kirk is a really sick play.
The
Cowboy Zay Jones.
I mean, he's in play.
Yeah.
I guess.
Go ahead, Sam.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I'm curious. I think if you're comparing ETN to the other guys on his team, he's certainly gonna be the most owned. But I'm curious to compare him to, I guess, the soft fade teams, because I do get the sense that Jacksonville will be pretty spread out. So you see what I'm saying? I don't think the question is is ETN
Saquon could be a lot higher, for example.
Yeah, he's not I think
I have them very even, and I'll tell you, I think my thinking on that, and I could be off on that, but my thinking is you're getting them going against the Chargers' run defense.
Yeah.
So people are going to feel comfy, if they win, I get 2 games out of the running back. That's nice. But even in a loss, ETN should be able to get there against this defense and just play the matchup.
And then even they're going to end up playing the Chiefs next, who also don't have a particularly great run defense.
Isn't this interesting, though, to think of the dynamic? So the 2 highest projected totals on the wild card slate is Jags Chargers and the Giants Vikings. And the 2 comfiest clicks on the soft fades would be the running backs, Barkley and ETN. And yet you can poke holes in those guys being an optimal negative game script play if they're losing. I think Barkley holds up a little bit more. I saw Jack Miller had a tweet today about Travis Etienne's target share. I mean, it's been poor.
Yeah.
And so that's why ETN feels like a little bit of a trap if you are projecting the Jags to lose. If you're playing this as the Eckler ETN, I mean, I don't know, that some of the logic doesn't track for me there.
I think just from a pure public perspective, ETN may not feel like bad chalk, but when you start really digging in and making a case against it, the sheen wears off really quick, right?
I do feel fairly confident that he will be chalky because when you look at the teams that people are going to fade, it generally lines up really, not completely neatly with their odds of advancing in, round 1 and to the Super Bowl eventually. But there's a strong correlation. And the Giants, looking at 538, have a 33% chance to advance to round 2. Jacksonville, 59% chance. So, I think, and you were talking, Pete, about how there's some hype around the Jags. You have to fade 2 of these teams. And the Giants are a team that I think will be somewhat popular as a fade. And that's going to make it harder to get to Barkley. Whereas, you have a bigger pie with the Jaguars because less people are fading the team.
And this is the dynamic that's really interesting to me. Nez says, I bet more people go to Ingram. People famously forget FFPC is tight end premium. Evan Ingram set the league on fire, weeks 14 through 16. But he had 1 reception for 2 yards against the Texans in week 17. He had 4 receptions for 27 yards in week 18. And I do think that recency bias element is going to bleed into ownership in a way he is going to be spread out across Kirk, Zay, and ETN. I do really feel like this is going to be spread out with, of course, Travis Etienne leading the way.
Yeah, I feel like Kirk might actually be the lowest owned of the Jags, relative to of the 3. Yeah,
That's
with Zay obviously is the 4th, right?
Yeah, that's how I have it.
Yeah, I have to do ownership projections, but I'm just going by vibes right now.
All right.
The Jags as a soft fade, they are somebody you should be getting tricky with, right? Because if you're saying they're only going to play 1 game, that's when anybody can do it.
Riley Patterson, Chipsy. All right, Hassan, it is time for our next flex pick.
You guys were already discussing it, but might as well make it official. Saquon, this is a guy who I DM'd Pat about a little bit, just because. Initially, I had the Giants' defense. Initially, I had the Giants' defense as in play with the Hurts lineup. But the more I thought about it, I agree in that the advanced analytics have this as a coin flip. Like, I think the Vikings are only a 3-point favorite at home. Saquon Barkley is the most comfortable way to play through this offense, especially in the highest total game at home. A highest total game, and then it's in a dome. So I can see people wanting to try to bank a touchdown or two, along with whatever he had last time, like eight catches or something ridiculous.
Were you DMing him about his quads? What was the contents of this DM?
Oh,
Just
no,
about how people were going to play this game, if they were going to play as a fade or a shootout.
Because Pat, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be in your ear about upping Barkley's ownership, because when you couple it with no one's playing Daniel Jones, right? And no one is going to feel good about clicking Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, Richie James. And there's a groundswell of sentiment about a Giants upset here. A lot of people think the Vikings
That's
are
the
fraudulent.
thing. That's how you get me to up it, because I have 1% on Slayton as essentially a placeholder for the entire rest of the offense. I have 0 on Jones, Hodgins, James. So there's 1% in this entire offense currently allocated to not Saquon Barkley. But I have a total fade on this team of 51%, including the kicker, the defense, and the fade. And maybe that's where I'm wrong, but you got to fade.
I think it's going to come down. I think
you got to
Barkley,
fade 4 teams.
You do, but so when people look, this has the highest projected total on the slate.
Yeah.
People are going to want to play this both ways. People are going to fucking jam Jefferson and Barkley. I'm telling you right now.
They're definitely jamming Jefferson and Barkley. This is where, like, when I saw Pat put it down in his, and I had the Giants defense because I wanted to be a little unique, I was like, nah, I just think Saquon makes sense here. Like, I just can't see how people don't do this.
You're probably
Does
right.
anyone else have Giants takes?
Oh, good.
I had a question. What do you think that Saquon should be? Because I'm just looking. It looks like he has 48% for Saquon.
My thought would be this. I think Saquon is fine, but I would much prefer Saquon in soft Vikings fades or Barkley with Hawkinson. I just think I kind of want to avoid the Barkley.
I'm not saying to play him. What do you think the ownership? Do you think if 48 is too low, do you think it's like 60?
That sounds about right to me. I think the Jags-Chargers game and the Vikings-Giants game are going to be the 2 games people are going to be willing to say, I don't know who's going to win. I'm going to play a stud on each side and be happy with the outcome regardless.
Yep. And it's easy to talk yourself into this being some kind of shootout, because this game could dud. Like, pretty frankly, this game could dud. Right? Mm-hmm. Like I initially had the Giants' defense, just because if you're playing as this game as a dud, like, how did this game dud? Well, Captain Kirk just turns into the guy who we've seen the last few weeks, where he turtles and throws a bunch of picks, right? But I do think Saquon deserves to be the highest owned Giant.
I see lots of good, like, Galaxy Brain thoughts in the chat.
Hodgins is great.
Graham Gano playing through the wide receivers. I don't think any of you guys are wrong. I'm just telling you this. When you and you can look again, I know I keep referencing this, but I think it's a good indicator when you look at Gauntlet ADP. I mean, Barkley's going in the 5th or 6th round. Daniel Jones will get drafted in the final round, and the rest of these Giants are going undrafted. I mean, no one feels confident about anything else on the Giants other than Barkley.
I think it's worth noting, too, that we're talking through. This is going to be our pick for the most duplicated lineup for the $200 contest. And we're kind of talking through ownership and stuff for the $200 contest. I don't think people are going to feel okay putting $200 down on Isaiah Hodgins. You'll see some of that in the $35 contest. There's a $35 version of this, and it makes more sense to get a little more gal brain there. But I just don't see people doing that here.
Yeah.
The other thing, so week 17, I had Saquon on one of my FFPC teams, and I think the Giants got to the goal line like 3 times, and someone other than Saquon got the touchdowns. If I'm not saying this is why he should be lower, but if something like that happened again, you could easily see another Giant be the
Yeah. I mean, it's the same case for Josh Allen, right? Like Konami code goal line running back guy.
Yep. All right, let's move on from Barkley. Let's head to the next flex here. Hassan, who do you got?
This is how you know the winds are shifting. This is Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
I initially had like Mixon there, and I was like, I can't even do it, man. Even Mixon's like biggest backers are like, he ain't that good.
I don't know, man. They're still looking at his expected points, and they are pretty excited about those.
You think a boomer knows what an expected point is?
I think that's our current boomer in the 2023 landscape.
Geriatric millennials.
Yeah, that's us.
Millennials.
But no, I just don't see how you go away from Jamar Chase here, unfortunately, right? Like he was like going earlier than everybody else in FFPC main event drafts. Like I just don't see how people are going to be away from him because, I mean, Jamar Chase just is that dude, you know? If AJ Brown didn't exist, here's the second coolest guy in the NFL. Well, if AJ Brown and Justin Jefferson didn't exist, they're, the coolest guy in the NFL.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I think, the way that things have played out with Joe Mixon and T. Higgins, like people know that they have the ceiling in the back of their head. We've seen both those guys have monster games, but none of those guys feel comfy relative to Jamar Chase. I mean, Jamar Chase is such a comfy click.
I mean, and Jamar Chase really needs, and it sounds really cliche, but one target, man. One target, and he's breaking a 97-yard touchdown to the house, and that's all you need, right? And that's he's the guy who can make it happen on one play, and we've seen that.
Can you guys poke any holes on Jamar Chase being chalk? I honestly can't.
I can.
No, I was making a joke about the Mixon thing, but especially with how pass heavy the Bengals went down the stretch, and Mixon actually stopped getting as much work inside the 10. Like I'm looking at it now, the last 5 weeks, he only got 4 carries inside the 10.
It was
part of that,
right?
Averaging 3 a game. He was leading the league by a lot. I think there's Jamal Williams is close to him, but there's maybe only one other running back within an attempt per game of him. He was at 3, and everyone else is at 2. And he only had 4 down the stretch in the last 5 games that he played because they went pass heavy. When we talk about the recency bias, people are going to be focused on how they've played recently, and they've thrown a lot. Chase is going to be chalk for sure.
Yeah, and Mixon snaps have also before he got injured, they were consistently 70% plus snaps. Since he's come back, it's been more in the 50 to 60 range with P. Ryan's role growing. So again, reason I don't know if that's because they've been pass happy and there's still a chance they'll use Mixon really heavy in the playoffs or whatever, but the recency bias thing on Mixon, just the usage has not been great lately. So I don't see people going to him over Chase.
I'll try to play a little bit devil's advocate in that, unlike say Justin Jefferson, where people are going to feel really comfy playing it in either scenario, if Lamar for some reason doesn't play or people want to play this as a Bengals route, is there anything where they're like, hey, Mixon could just smash in this game against a depleted Baltimore team? I guess then you're taking Mixon on the road to Buffalo.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel good.
But I think you're right there. I think Mixon's going to get played more than Dalvin Cook because for the season at large, he was, I don't even know that he was that much better. I haven't looked at their scoring lately, but obviously got a ton of work in the usage, and people saw a 5 TD game out of him this year. It's certainly possible that he could have a monster game. I could see that. I think he's more of a threat to Chase than Cook is to Jefferson for sure.
And if you had to order going after Chase, who do you think catches more, Higgins or Mixon? That's interesting to me.
I thought you were going to go Higgins when you said to make a counter case.
I had Mixon, but I think it's Higgins. I just flipped them.
I think it's Higgins too.
Yeah,
It's going to be close, I think.
I think it's really close.
It's
And
I think
Burrow,
that's
I
a
mean-
good bellwether though for like how Galbraith this contest is now. Is like how close are those guys relative to the chase?
I thought, Pete, you were going to make a case that Higgins is so much more of a threat than like Adam Thielen or even Hawkinson, right? And he is. And he had a monster Super Bowl. You also, like last year, you had that element where Chase had the better run, but then Higgins got the 2x Super Bowl points and got close, I think, right? He was close to being the option for them. It could be Higgins. I mean, I think Higgins is going to be played a decent amount.
Yeah, I think Higgins is analogous to Devonta Smith. And the only difference in the comp of Eagles versus Philly is that people feel a little bit better about Joe Mixon than they do Miles Sanders. But I do think if you rank sentiment for Eagles in Cincinnati, it's similar. AJ Brown, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders.
I think you'll see more Higgins than Smith because Goddard might draw some.
Yeah.
That's true. Goddard's more of a pull than Hurst, definitely. But is Hurst or Jalen Hurts more of a pull than Burrow?
Yes, for
Yes,
sure he is.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. But I think
Hurst
Chase is chalkier than Brown. I think Chase is
I think Chase is
Yes.
definitely
Look at
chalkier than
Chase.
Brown.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I do
Yeah.
think there's
Is
more
Burrow
of
a donkey
push-pull.
play?
No, I think
No,
he-
I don't think so.
I
I don't
think,
think
I think
so.
he's kind
Burrow's
of like
not a
really,
donkey play.
You,
Because it can be
Everyone
spread
was
out.
way too excited about that. Now he's definitely a donkey play.
Now he's a donkey. Bunch of guys all climbing into the crown cart. Yeah, I actually in the private chat, Ben, I put Burrow might be the GOAT QB.
Oh, there you go. Everyone's gonna come to that by Friday. That's gonna
I
be
know.
the
Yeah.
take this year.
Yeah.
Then
I
then
do
the
think-
move is Justin Herbert. Like just bring
I feel a lot better about Burrow than Herbert.
Oh,
Herbert
yeah,
feels
yeah.
a little bit like a donkey play.
Herbert's terrible. Yeah, no, I was just messing around.
All right, Hassan, let's move us along here. I think it's pretty clear Jamar Chase is going to be the most popular Bengals play. What do we got next?
Yeah, chat's already been calling for this, and then it's going to be CeeDee Lamb. I mean, this is from a macro perspective. All of a sudden, you're able to cram 4 of the best wide receivers in the NFL in the same lineup, right? Like all of a sudden, you've got pretty much anyone who's been picked in the first and early second round next year, or even this year. Right. So all of a sudden you can combine these guys and there's no constrainer for you. Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Right. So from a macro perspective, this is what really makes the most sense. Because you're able to cram this much receiving talent. I mean, that said, Lamb has been the only one true constant there. I mean, Gallup has come up. Noah Brown is taking away targets. You're not going to play Noah Brown in this. Zeke is, essentially splitting time with Pollard. I think that Pollard's going to Zeke are going to get ownership. But if you're playing this game as a shootout, which it could be, then you want to go the Lamb route.
Yeah, and the only guy I think who could have competed with him would have been Tony Pollard, who was kind of setting the league on fire there for a spell. But you look at his last 2 games, 7 attempts, 19 rushing yards, 9 attempts, 19 rushing yards. He did in week 17 against the Eagles have 6 receptions, but I have noticed Tony Pollard slipping in drafts. He's another one that's been a massive slider relative to early gauntlet ADP, where he was like a 2-3 turn pick with a lot of Lamb stacks. Everyone was doubling him up, and now you can get him in the 4th, 5th round at times. So sentiment has shifted on Pollard, whereas Lamb has stayed right up there. So I can't make any case for anyone other than CD up here.
But it is an interesting point that it brings us to with the 4 fades that you guys both came to this consensus that in particular both the Bucks, Seahawks, and Dolphins. I think the Ravens wouldn't really shock anyone. Dolphins, Seahawks, Bucks have a lot of good players on them. You guys have them all as faded in one way or another.
Yeah. So in the initial run, if you see, I had Justin Tucker initially there, and I am getting this growing feeling that I just don't think Lamar Jackson plays. I just have this it's still early. It's still early.
Tomorrow we'll know. If he doesn't practice tomorrow, alarm bells need to start fucking ringing.
Yeah, I just had this initially when I made my first pass, I was maybe he was maybe they were making a business decision, sitting him out. But even then, even if Lamar plays, at best you're getting Tucker here in the K, because that team is kind of depleted. Realistically, I really think that they make a lot more sense of the fade here, even though their Vegas odds for making the Super Bowl are more than the Jags or even the Giants. But you don't feel comfortable clicking Mark Andrews, right? So I think just to go back to the K, you got CeeDee Lamb on the one side. We said we were gonna, if you're playing this as a shootout, which is projected to be, then your K bring back is suck up, right?
Yeah. And this is kind of like a dumb point, but just the fact that it's Justin Tucker, people are just gonna love putting him in the kicker spot. Like, ignore all the other stuff, like Ryan Suckup, like some of these other kickers, Riley Patterson. The boomers have never heard of Riley Patterson. They've heard of Justin Tucker.
Hang on.
Yeah.
So.
Are we getting us ahead of ourselves?
Kicker Chasing. It's the show where we chase the best kickers. The kickers that help you win championships. The biggest legs, the breaking news. It's everything you've come to love and know. The time is now for Kicker Chasing. Let's get some fucking kickers. Oh, yeah!
I was thinking that might be our other kicker clip.
Even the kicker chasing clip told us
we
to
might,
fade Ryan.
We might get a double kicker clip here. Hassan, who's the kicker?
So it is suck up, right?
No,
it wasn't Tucker.
Yeah, no. My original run had Tucker. So my actual original run didn't have Barkley. It had Godwin instead, right? Because people would not be comfortable playing either one of CeeDee Lamb or the Bucs to lose, right? Either Dallas or Bucs to lose. So I had Chris Godwin in there. But the more I thought about it, and like the more I'm looking over it, like I think the Bucs, like a lot of people are picking the Bucs as a trendy upset. And that will be the one where I feel like you're just gonna find people going, all right, if I want to collect some points from an easy, matchup where it's gonna shoot out, you're gonna go the suck up route. But I would have loved, because like my original run didn't have Saquon, it had the Giants, DSD, and Justin Tucker, and the Dolphins in Seattle with the fades.
So Nate's saying that Boomer soft fading Tom Brady feels wrong. I do think that the Godwin Dallas D version of this will also be very popular.
I guarantee
you just pick the other side of this game.
Yes. I was going to say that exact same thing. It's similar to the Josh Allen, AJ Brown, Hurts, Diggs 2v2. I can see people splitting how they approach this.
I think I would argue, well, Hassan said though, that having both a Dallas and a Bucs player in, because it's a spread inside of 3 points. It's a 4-5 game. I think it's easy to play both sides of it, right? Even more so than the Vikings Giants, which has a close spread as well. And people
you get the whole offense when you pick Saquon, right? That's how it feels. You get the whole offense. You have to pick Godwin, you have to pick Evans, and that where I landed with this is that I think ultimately people are going to go, give me CD. I know I have the Dallas side. This is basically a toss up, but I'll pick Dallas, and then I don't have to deal with the headache of picking the right buck.
And I see a lot of chat, and I do think I have seen, the line hasn't moved, right? The line has stayed at Tampa Bay +3. I know there's a lot of people who are like, hey, Tampa Bay has come on strong. Dallas just flopped against the Commanders. I wouldn't be surprised to see ETN flipped for a Godwin or Evans in the Boomer Opto.
Yeah.
And then go down to like a Riley Patterson or a defense, Jags defense, as the Jags saw fade. I think it's maybe close between those because people are ready to bet against the Cowboys after that flop last week.
Yeah, and I just think that like right now the Jags are catching so much media attention that it's really hard to not have ETN in there, right? Like it's really hard to not have him in there right now. Even though Vegas doesn't give the Jags, the Giants, Miami, or the Seahawks much of a shot.
Yeah. I do think that one's going to be close because there's really three games that you'd play both ways, right? It's, of course, Jags, Chargers, it's Giants, Vikings, and then it's Cowboys and Bucks.
And I think to your point, Pete, with the I mean, we're talking about it from the Vegas perspective. I think some boomers are going to look at it from the Vegas perspective. I think some are going to look at it. I guess sort of the way that I'm looking at it from the boomer mentality when I mentioned the Giants as potentially a fade is like which of these teams were good fantasy offenses, right? Like the Bucks threw more passes this year, I think, than any team in NFL history, right? Or second most. I mean, they have the extra game, but they led the league in pass attempts. There was a lot of volume to go around in that offense. They're in a potential could go either way game, and they were like a fun fantasy offense, whereas the Giants weren't, right?
But the Bucks weren't a fun fantasy offense. I mean, they had a good week against the Panthers, but they were pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Oh, would you say it was a good week against the Panthers, Pat?
some were saying it's a good week.
But fun from a perspective of they threw passes, whereas the Giants were a very run-heavy team.
I feel like the Bucks coming on strong narrative. There's a very low bar. They were like losing to the Falcons when they had all their starters in this week, but yeah, they're coming on real strong for the playoffs.
That's how I feel, Sam. I'm like, I don't know. It's like a fraudulent coming on strong. I'm like, what is this momentum? I don't even see it.
Yeah, but they have people are gonna want to play Tom Brady.
No, yeah, the boomer mindset is they're coming on strong. That's for sure.
That is true.
And the biggest issue that I have with the Bucks is man, like they're really not a fun team to watch. If you sit and watch their games, they're like the most. You lose like. I think you lose
play the
like
games of the
10x.
Sizzler?
They
you know what? The boomer definitely he submits this $200 lineup and then he puts a $35 lineup with Tom Brady at quarterback.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Well, again, I do think recency bias with this stuff is like really big. And if you think about how people thought maybe the Jags would handle the Titans more, and ETN went 7 for 17 in that game. He only had 2 receptions. Whereas we're coming with the Bucks, who just had a massive game 2 weeks ago. I know they kind of folded against the Falcons, but they weren't playing for anything. I think my boomer Opto would flip ETN off there. When you think about the bevy of options for the Jags, I just wonder if people are spooked on ETN right now.
Interesting. All right.
That's just my lean. I think traditionally, like if you would have done this boomer Opto 2 weeks ago, a fucking course like ETN over this, but I'm kind of thinking that people are not going to feel confident with ETN the more I kind of talk this through and think about the game they want to play both ways.
Yeah, ETN just doesn't seem healthy, and I don't know how much people are paying attention to that, but the last 2 weeks he's really his snaps and role have been pretty down. So I don't know what's up with that, but yeah, I think I agree with you, Pete, on the Godwin ETN switch.
Yeah, I think Blair might be right there, because I initially did have. I mean, I'm in there with Tucker, and then I had who did I have at D? I had Giants at D, but like I think Pat and I agree. Like Seattle is probably going to defense. No, it's probably going to be it's Seattle. We already have.
Well,
I see what you're doing. Yeah.
The pushback I would have on this is the boomer Opto is that there's going to be some Evans, right? So like if you think about the most duped lineup, maybe Buccaneers wide receiver, you're right, but I don't know about people. I do think they'll go to Godwin over Evans. You get the narrative with the pass rush and everything, but Evans has got to catch some, right?
Here's the thing though about Evans, right? I know he missed last week, right? So maybe you throw that out, but people have this thought on Evans as being extremely boom bust, right? Like had a string of like 6 games, none of the air yards hitting. Godwin is the comfy boomer click. He's consistently been a target earner. He's had solid games back to back, PPR scoring. People aren't chasing the spike week as much. And Godwin feels good. This goes back to the Debo, the Jefferson thing. Negative game script, positive game script. Godwin can get there in either one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And again, if you want to talk about a name brand kicker that the boomers feel comfortable clicking,
So people have been stealing that clip and passing it off as their own work
Yeah.
on Twitter.
I
Have
saw
they really?
that. Did someone legit
Yeah.
steal that clip?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's.
I reported them. I reported them for like offensive material or something. I did-
Twitter police, get this man.
You know what, Zach? I'll do this. Zach says, "Can someone please explain this boomer option meaning? Like, is it the wrong play?" Here's the thing: there's good people on both sides, Zach. This is the lineup that we think is most likely to be replicated by the field. We think these are the comfiest clicks. If you play DFS, this is the chalk lineup. These are the best plays. They are the best plays, but in conjunction, it is probably not your path to winning $500,000.
Well,
But
it's definitely not your path to 500,000. It might be your path to winning like 50,000 with 100 of your closest friends.
if you're a cash game king, this is what you're putting in.
Yeah.
It might be your path to winning a free subscription to Football Guys next year.
I had one thought about Tucker is that like he is somebody where you can feel smart, you can feel sneaky picking him. Like, oh, I'm playing a Raven, like, and with all the, I guess with more content saying, oh no, you should be contrarian. He can feel like someone like where you're going against the grain a bit.
I actually don't think it'll be Tucker. I think the more dupe version of this will be Jags kicker. Because Tucker hasn't actually been all that high owned in past years. I know he's got the name brand, and that's
But in part because Andrews was more of a play and Lamar was more of a play. The Ravens have had more faith on what they can do. It's really opened up for Justin Tucker this year.
But
people want to play that as a. I think what you generally see is that people will play the kicker as a shootout, and so 2 years ago, Tucker came in at 9%. I actually don't think the name brand will be that much of a boost. He was at. I don't know. I had him projected at 3 years ago.
I think he's going to
kick off through the uprights. It's already a shootout. He makes it a shootout. He's going to make 360 yards.
I think
if Lamar goes, I think maybe you guys are right, but I think if not, it'll be the Jags.
Yeah, that's
guy.
probably fair.
Yeah, I think both Pat and I approached this from the perspective of Lamar being out, because the reason I think Pat, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason I had Seattle defense in there is of all the remaining teams, they on most like some kind of traction in terms of turnovers, because that game in San Francisco is projected to be kind of muddy, potentially not that great not great field conditions, so they could luck into some kind of turnover luck. I think that was my reasoning going behind why I wanted Seattle DSD as a chalk defense.
That's how I felt too. I just felt like maybe they get a Brock Purdy pick or something.
Like this
so you guys said.
Yeah, Sam?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, so you would have had Seattle D and then hard fade of Miami and Tampa is what, Miami and Baltimore is what you were saying.
Yeah, because we're both assuming Lamar is not going to play and Miami is like 10-point dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see a hard fade on the Bucks.
That's the one that we struggled with.
Neither of us had that. We had suck up, but
suck up. Yeah.
The fades are not as clear this year. We got a little bit of a better field. The 7 seeds getting in, even like the Dolphins can be played. Obviously, Tyreek was fantastic this year. In past years, we've had like the Bears sneak in and Washington sneak in a couple of years ago, and it's like, yeah, everyone's gonna fade that team.
Yeah, imagine if like the Steelers snuck in, they would be like 100% hard fade or something.
Right. To that point, I think that Tyreek Hill might be a crazy good play.
Yeah.
Because people are gonna want to fade him. They're gonna want to fade the Dolphins and just be like, I know they're losing, but if you get a shootout from that game, not even a shootout, but just like the Bills score, the Dolphins throw, and Tyreek's getting his target share. So he gets there in a one and done. He beats Saquon, they lose. He beats Godwin, they lose. You're sitting pretty.
The one thing I would say, and I can tell Zach he says it's his first year playing. Like the temptation is to just put in the best players. I would say the best exercise you can do is build out your Super Bowl bracket. How do you think the Super Bowl is going to go? Just fill out your bracket and then pick the players from those teams in reverse order. Start with your Super Bowl players, then start with your conference championship guys, and reverse engineer it all the way down to the guys you are fading. I think that's the best way you can hand build teams. And if you just rip teams in based on name value or whatever, you're going to end up close to the boomer Opto, and you're going to be duped, and you're not going to have a story and a path that can help you win.
And the biggest mistake you have to avoid is you can't fade two teams playing each other in the first round. This is
the most fundamental.
There's teams every year that like will take, I don't know, there's not really a great game this year where this might happen.
They'll go suck up Dallas D.
Suck up Dallas D. You can't soft fade both sides of, because there's too many teams that are going to play one game. One of those teams is going to play two games, and whenever teams play two games, it's typically not the kicker or the D. It's very unlikely to be the kicker or the D.
It's just tying one hand behind your back because you're guaranteeing two games out of your kicker or D.
And whenever the team's playing two games, it also means they won the first game. We had a unique spot last year where San Fran won in the first game. We played Dallas kind of heavy on the other side of that game because everyone was picking San Fran to upset. It was like being overplayed. San Fran wins. We had a lot of Robbie Gold, but we were like, they won in a way that like we were actually like super excited. There's a possibility Robbie Gold could actually be the right kicker in two games. Like it was like a crazy thing. But in most cases, that team winning that first game is scoring enough points that some skill guy is outscoring the kicker by enough, and then going on and scoring some more points in the second game. You have to make sure you're getting a skill guy or a quarterback, whatever, a player from each of the games.
Yes.
All right, let's transition to a little bit more in the weeds strategy now that we kind of know the table stakes here, what the field is going to be gravitating to. Sam, I know you've put together some charts. What angle are we looking at here?
Yeah. So what I wanted to look at here, so what this chart is showing is projected ownership from Pat's data, and I think Pat, maybe you updated these percentages slightly, but
I've updated them as we've been doing the show. So yeah, they're not.
Yeah, they're more of this.
Yeah,
more or less this. Yeah, and so that's what those gray bars are. What the green like lines are there are the team odds to win the Super Bowl, just from 538. I averaged 538 and DraftKings odds to get to the team odds of winning the Super Bowl. And the basic assumption I was making here, like, I think that these things should be fairly equal because in general, you want to pick the quarterback on your team that wins the Super Bowl. Obviously not always. Like, you can pick a quarterback that makes it to the Super Bowl, or you can have and loses, or you can have scenarios like last year where, Josh Allen isn't optimal, even though he only plays 2 games. It's not like a cut and fast, like hard and fast rule, but in general, like, these things should be pretty close to equal. Which leads me to, I think, like the strongest take I have on this tournament right now is that I think Brock Purdy is maybe the best leverage play if his ownership is really 0%.
Wow. The gal
and
brain is
this is really okay. Yeah, I know I get some pushback here.
I thought we were starting slow.
Maybe a terrible take.
Purdy.
But okay, listen to me here before we freak out.
We need a gal brain clip. I need to see some rocket chips right now.
So I looked into this a little bit not just backing up with these numbers. In Brock Purdy's starts, he's averaged over 20 fantasy points per game. McCaffrey for the season is just under 20. So, like, I think the biggest pushback is like, okay, Purdy should be really low owned because if SF makes a Super Bowl, you should play CMC. He's going to outscore Purdy. We've seen that it's possible that Purdy can outscore CMC. Additionally, the 49ers, like, their big spike games among their skill position players could just ping pong throughout the playoffs. They have Ayuk, they have Kittle, they have Debo. Elijah Mitchell's back now. Obviously, CMC's there. Like, I could see a scenario where SF just rolls. Like, they have really high odds of winning the Super Bowl from sports books and everything. SF could just roll and Purdy could spread the ball out, ping pong different spike weeks, different players. And he's the quarterback that you need. Obviously, like, I don't think he should be 15% owned or whatever, but I think the fact that he's 0% owned makes him a pretty interesting.
It's a pretty good case, honestly.
The
So
question
I
will be so hard for people to figure out is how do you get away from playing the QB on the AFC team you're picking him to play in the Super Bowl, no matter
Yes.
who that is. Mahomes,
Yeah.
Allen, Burrow, Herbert.
I think
Lamar.
I think the way you play it right is with the Chiefs only playing 3 games, and then you put Kelsey in there, and Kelsey just smashes so much for the Chiefs that you need him instead of Mahomes. I think you play an SFKC Super Bowl and play it that way. But
So
yeah,
I did a version of your calculation, Sam. I just plugged in 20 points per game for Brock Purdy, and I've got efficient ownership, which is a slightly different calculation, at about 8.5%. So not zero, like meaningly.
I think it'll be pretty close to zero.
Different from zero. What's that?
I do think it'll be pretty close to zero.
I just think it's crazy that the second favorite team in the NFC, like just nobody's going to play their quarterback, even though he's played well. He's played really well. I don't know.
And I will say it's a completely different dynamic on the underdog contest. But as Chipsy, my guy here, points out, I mean, Brock Purdy, like this guy is getting steamed up so much. And, a lot of people take him as their second quarterback if they take a bye week quarterback. But it just, again, as a sentiment indicator, the market is on board with Brock Purdy in a San Francisco run. And if that is not carrying over to any FFPC ownership, it's vaguely interesting.
And I'll quickly show, I made these charts at the team level. So if you look at,
well, Sam, how many of these are you doing? Because I need to up it to whatever you're putting in.
I'm going, 150 Brock Purdy team. So let's see. Let me try to take our faces away so we can see this a little better. So this is the San Francisco opportunity share in the only games where Debo, CMC, Ayuk, Kittle have all played together. Like, no, these are Jimmy G starts. Mitchell only played 3 of these games, but this is, again, just to illustrate that, like, when everyone's there, it's really spread out. Obviously, like CMC, 22% target share, 48% rush share. Like, that's going to get you a shit ton of points if they roll. But, like, there's a lot of guys you could go to. Even Jawan Jennings popping out there is like 13% target share. Like, this could be really spread out in a way that could be good for Purdy.
The thing I struggle with is that you probably are going against Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, maybe even Joe Burrow. And to get the parlay of him outscoring CMC, and then who's going to be massive chalk as well. So there's a ton of teams you're fading that might have gotten a couple points on you in other ways. And then you also are fading, a lot of those teams are going to have that other quarterback. He's a real dog to outscore.
Energy. You need a CMC injury and him to spread it 3 games in a row.
But you're also a real dog to outscore the AFC quarterback who also is making a Super Bowl run. Like, I think you almost need, I wonder if you almost need it to be like the Jags or the Chargers or something. I agree that Kelsey could be the route, but like, I don't know. Even Diggs is sort of tough to see.
Yeah, I think you have to play it a specific way, like with Kelsey, or maybe if you're really galbraning, like on the Jags making a run, like with Ingram or something. But yeah, I think it's like a specific scenario. Like, you have to think very carefully about how you play Purdy. Like, you probably want to like fade the Bills somehow. You want Kelsey to just absolutely smash, so you need him at tight end. You gotta be careful about it. But just the fact that you had 0% projected ownership for him, and it sounds like you guys all think he's going to be very, very low. It's like, I don't think he should be 0 by any means.
Yeah, well, I would say, and when I say fade the Bills, maybe that just means a team where you have Tyreek. So you're not necessarily like not picking a Bill, but you're making sure you have a live Dolphin with that, something like that.
Sam, a lot of people in the chat are talking about make to the Super Bowl odds versus win the Super Bowl odds. I doubt that meaningfully changes things, right?
No, you could show it like that. This way it's just kind of fun because like both of the percentages should sum to 1, if that makes sense. If you show it the other way, it just like doesn't. Like, this way, projected ownership has that up to 100%. Odds of winning the Super Bowl has that up to 100%. That just kind of looks good on a graph. Yeah,
we're trying to make good graphs around here, folks.
Yeah.
All right. Any other takeaways from this chart or anything else here, Sam?
I think the only other takeaways is like Mahomes versus Allen and Hurts. Just like if you're picking between the, you have one lineup, you want to go with one of the chalkier QBs. Like I would just go with Mahomes, especially like Mahomes versus Hurts. If there's that discrepancy in ownership, Mahomes is, I think, averaged in terms of points per game more than both of those guys, or actually slightly behind Hurts, but ahead of Allen by a little bit. So I don't know. He's right there in terms of ceiling. So if I
will
note
the
tiebreaker there.
QBs and what happened last year with Allen being the optimal QB. A big part of that is because Kelsey outscored the other tight ends so much, and the rushing QBs can score more in just like a couple games. So the odds for the Super Bowl, like them being projected for more ownership than their odds to win the Super Bowl, might actually capture some of that like 3-game or 2-game outcome magic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It seems to me, to my eye, it actually looks like almost reasonable. Although I do think you're right that Mahomes is maybe a little light.
Well, I think that's fair if you compare him to Allen, but Hurts also has the same bye week issue as the Chiefs. So I'm just like, I don't really get why Hurts should be that much more owned.
I think that's a good point.
Mahomes.
Yeah.
Mahomes does. And I think Mahomes will come in like too light because Kelsey's such an easy click. But we've seen Kelsey cool off. Like Mahomes could easily be the guy you need on the Chiefs. Easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Pat, give me one just thought, because I saw this comment from Dan about Dak's ownership being high. The thought I have, and this is just anecdotal, is that I want to say that when I see Galaxy branding in the FFPC contest, a lot of times it will happen at quarterback more than any other position. Well, someone will tell themselves a story. What if the Cowboys make the Super Bowl? Is that far-fetched? Yeah. No. Like, to me, the Galaxy branding happens there, and that's why I don't think the Dak ownership is that crazy.
Yeah, that's what that is. It's 4 games, right? We talked about why Josh Allen's going to be the Boomer Opto quarterback. It's because he gets that 4th game. And I think, and look, I mean, it's not a crazy thing. Tom Brady a couple years ago was the right play because you got the 4th game. You got the Super Bowl run out of the Bucs. So, I think it's a reasonable play to go, if Dallas is going to make a Super Bowl run, I actually want Dak, not CD, and I get the leverage. And so you talk yourself into it. And I think people do that a little bit with Burrow and Dak. I struggle to see people really going there with Herbert so much, but that's why he has a little bit as well.
All right. What do we got next?
I'm happy to switch to Connor's charts if he's got something.
Draco, what do you got for us?
So
that was a fun graph. I enjoyed that.
Oh, did we both click it at the same time?
I think so. This is what happens when I let you monitor log into my StreamYard account.
All right, I'm not as fancy as Sam with moving the. Thank you.
Yeah.
So for those of you familiar with, so I've been doing these leverage charts in the GPP Discord for a while. I've used a lot of the same concepts for this chart, and it's the idea of, hey, so we've got Pat's ownership, pretty intuitive. And then what I try to do is I try to calculate what should efficient ownership be. And this is for the fades. And essentially what I've used is I've used the 538 odds and probabilities. And I've calculated the odds of one and dones for teams. And I've essentially calculated what the efficient fade ownership should be from those odds. And I guess, as expected, Miami, Seattle, Baltimore, New York Giants, all super high. But you can see that these teams...
Draco, zoom in on it for the people. We can't see this.
Yeah, I've suffered a lot of cognitive decline lately. I really need to zoom in.
Let me fucking...
There we go. Now we're cooking.
Font size 24, baby.
Yeah. Comic Sans would be a bonus, but continue.
Oh,
sorry.
Wow.
Didn't mean to derail you, but continue here.
Yeah. So
This is also boomer. The font's getting bigger. Can't maintain two thoughts at once. Has to stop everything we're doing to increase the font on the computer.
Comic Sans is happening.
This is all. I mean,
2023 is the year Jason are becoming boomer.
That is the twist of
You're right.
this episode.
I should have gotten derailed there.
Draco's son's gonna come in here and help him use the computer.
Is this Michael? Is this a Michael Scott?
Draco, put it back on the rails.
Yeah. So obviously Miami, Seattle, Baltimore, New York Giants, super high. They are the highest teams of probability that of one and done. But the lesson from this chart is that their probability is not so meaningfully different from Tampa Bay, the Chargers, even Jacksonville. That, for example, Baltimore 60% ownership, Miami 50%. There's a discrepancy there, and I think especially if this is the year of the Galbrain, the fade ownership may not be as taught out as the kind of like sexy skill position players, and so even the Chargers, for example, if Eckler, if he's the boomer Opto, and it's honestly not that difficult to envision a scenario where Eckler doesn't play that well, the Chargers lose, and they are the optimal fade. And similar ideas for a lot of these teams.
So you have yellow is the sum of the fade leverage. All the teams after the first four have positive fade leverage, where the ownership, the actual field is going to fade them less than they should. The first four teams are all going to be faded more than they should.
Correct.
And let me just say that when I looked at last year's ownership and my projections, I thought that Pittsburgh, who is playing Kansas City, would be faded 54% total. So this includes the hard fades. We don't select them at all, plus kicker, plus D. So I said 54% total fade. They came in at 66%. I thought that New England would be faded 69% of the time. They came at 79%. I thought that the Eagles would be faded 79% of the time. They came at 88%. Those were the three highest faded teams, and I miss low on all of them. I think maybe the field is a little bit more Galbrain this year, but this is, if anything, seems to be the spot that the chalk is like condensing the most, and in a way that I think is like a little sneaky. Like when you're selecting the team, you're not necessarily putting in, I'm fading this. Like you literally don't, when you build a lineup, you don't click a fade. You just don't click anyone. And so it's less like top of mind, but you are essentially filling out two additional lineup spots, which are your fades.
This is one of the most important parts of this whole contest in my mind, which is people, when they make the lineup, want to give themselves multiple outs. So when there's teams that are that have a shot to win, or they feel more likely to have a shot to win, like the Chargers or the Vikings or what have you, they want to play one of the players in case they win. So they kind of want to play it both ways, right? We talked about this with some of the 4 or 5 games. People want to play it both ways. The reality of the contest is, the thing that we know, the constraint, is that 6 teams are going to lose in the first round. And of those 6 teams, we want our fades to come, to be 4 of those teams. It's ultimately just going to be, of those 6 teams, who are the highest scoring skill players, right? It can come from the really bad teams. Pat, you're just talking about Pittsburgh. Like Juju had a monster game and the Pittsburgh one and done that year. Everyone wanted to fade them because they didn't look likely to win. But ultimately, it's just a question of, well, even if we know they're going to lose, can they outscore what other teams we don't know are going to lose but might lose? We do know someone's going to lose. We don't know who's going to lose in those other games. And so ultimately, it becomes a one game versus one game scenario. But people play it through, they want to play it through both sides of the games that are closer and not really recognize that the constraint will be that 6 teams are going to lose. And so,
that's why Pete's point, you should pick your bracket. You need to know who you're picking, because otherwise you'll go, I'm not sure who's going to win here. I'll go Saquon and Jefferson, and I'll have someone advance.
The simplicity of the contest is a trap into getting you to just be like, oh, this is so easy. I can just pick the best plays. But you have to go down the rabbit hole and make that bracket and then make a logical team that fits that bracket.
And that helps, I think, maybe with the other temptation on this is to go 2 off the board. You don't actually have to go way off the board. What you have to do is
there's no Khalil Shakur is not needed.
I think Trenton Irwin's one of the best plays in this format.
Just some smart pivots on what teams you're fading, and you can still play the good plays on the other teams. But like, I can't remember who just said. I think Dricka was saying if you wanted to fade the Chargers, for example, not a lot of people are going to fade them, and if they actually become the fade team in a loss, which is very possible, you're going to be gaining on the field a ton. You can be playing Saquon Barkley or the stars from Mark Andrews or whatever. Maybe Mark Andrews has a monster game. He's a great flex for the Ravens, but they're getting faded so heavily because no one's picking them to win without Lamar. Maybe they do lose, but he catches 10 passes in a loss from Tyler Huntley. Like that's great.
And now you have a flexibility at tight end, which is the hardest position to fill this year.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is whatever teams lose, they're only going to play one game. And so when it's only one game, the variance creeps up super high.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. Great point. That Bonesaw makes a great point. Just play Tyreek. I mean, that's where I said Mark Andrews, but like people are going to fade the Dolphins a ton. They have players that can score in one game, knowing even if you're playing them to lose in one game, they can score enough points that you're fine, right?
Yeah. Here's a total Galbrain play in this tournament. Jalen Waddle. That's Galbrain. So, like, if you're thinking, like, oh, I need to play.
I'm just true up the signs.
No, he's completely right. This is from the man that won $2 million. He is right. This is a $500,000 play.
He mentioned them.
But if you're thinking to play Waddle, just play Tyreek.
Well, no. What I'm saying is that's your line of you've gone to the far edges of the universe when you're playing Jalen Waddle, and so like don't talk yourself into Quez Watkins or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
don't talk yourself into Brock Purdy or something like that.
I kind of like that one though.
Yeah. And it goes to show too, like when you think through, like we go through this in DFS, right? Where you're looking at an optimal lineup and you're sacrificing projected points because you're getting a massive, massive ownership discount. And that you're normally in DFS having to give up way more projected points when you're Galbraining. In this contest, you are not having to give up that much. Like you look at those 1B receivers that we just mentioned, Waddle, Devonta Smith, T. Higgins, like these guys are right there as far as one game ceiling, even over a 2-game sample size. It's when you start saying, hey, Bengals go 3 games, 4 games. Yes, it's more likely that Chase outscores over a bigger sample size. But if you're playing these guys as one and done or just 2 games, these plays become incredibly attractive. And then you start to think about the comfy one and done clicks, the Barkleys, right? The Chris Godwins. And to Pat's point, you look at Waddle or even Tyreek Hill, like you might not even have to go to Waddle because Tyreek Hill is going to be so underutilized as a one and done play.
Yes. He's already a contrarian leverage play. That's why Waddle's Galbrain. It's because you're pivoting off an already great leverage play.
Yeah.
When you guys are doing this, are you like calculating? I know in DFS, like a common concept is cumulative ownership, or sorry, product. I guess product ownership is probably more relevant. Are you calculating product ownership and then comparing that to the entries and saying, hey, if I have this product ownership, I only expect like one of these lineups in the tournament. You know what I mean? You can kind of do the math to
we did cumulative and product last year. That's how we're set up to do it.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and do that. I think we did this last year. Let's build a team here on the fly that we can lock in, trying to put some of these ideas on their feet here. Hassan, you are one of our guests of honor tonight. You can pick someone from the Boomer Opto. You can pick a leverage play. How do you want to kick us off?
You're muted too.
It's a Boomer move.
It is a Boomer move. Are you guys gonna get mad at me if I say Joe Burrow?
I was hoping you'd say Joe Burrow.
That sounds super fun.
If you guys let me do it, I was gonna say Brock Purdy. God damn.
Yeah.
We got
You're gonna have to do that in the quiet of your own home, Sam. All right. Hassan gets Burrow. Let's go to Dricko next.
Let me see.
So, not to influence you, Drico, while you think for a second, I just want to say for the audience, like the way that I think about this immediately is like, I don't want this to be now like an Eagles team, for example, or a Bengals-Eagles championship, because part of me thinks that would be more likely to be Hurts because he can rush for so many touchdowns. Maybe that's not right because he's not playing 4 games. But so then if that is right, it pushes me towards like, okay, if we're playing Bro, then I kind of want to play AJ Brown. He's not even on the same side of the bracket, but it's
not to influence you, but Ben's thinking about AJ Brown.
I'm trying to tell people about this correlated, an example of this correlated thing. Yeah,
no, it's just a correlation thing, you know.
Yeah, look, AJ Brown's on.
That was a really convoluted way to say you should pick AJ Brown.
Say pick AJ Brown, dude.
Or Devonta Smith.
I'm actually gonna go with Kenneth Walker.
Oh, okay. Speak on that.
Well, it's like I said, they're going to be a really common fade. Kenneth Walker is obviously very talented running back. They could lose, and he still has a really good game. That especially among other running backs is high enough relative to other running backs and the other one and done teams that is in the optimal.
I'll back up Drico here too, that with everything on the line last week, Kenneth Walker played 90% of the snaps for Seattle after playing like 50-60% a couple weeks before. So he's going to be like the full-time workhorse in this game. So I definitely see scenarios even where they lose, he just puts up a ton of points. Maybe even catches 4 or 5 passes. I think it's possible.
It feels like a fun leverage play. I mean, it's a really tough T. People are not going to play that.
I will say I definitely have moments where I go too contrarian. I think
it's fine. I mean,
I think to your point about it being, again, I'm not trying to influence people, but my thought on this, your point about it being the running back points mattering enough at that position from a one and done, it makes me want to not flex a running back. It makes me want to project a playoff where it's a lot of receiver points through to the Super Bowl in the later rounds. And you do want a running back for one of your 2 spots from a one and done, right? Like just mathematically.
Yeah. All right, Sam.
There's been an insane amount of steam coming in on the Kenneth Walker under rush, by the way. So like this is gonna be less than 0.1% easy.
Sam.
Oh, sorry. Let's go Tyreek Hill. I think
Oh my God! You're just making the 3 of us just eat fucking chalk because you guys galbrain all over this.
Is
That
Tyreek
was
Hill
my pick. I was going to take
Is
Tyreek.
that big of a galbrain?
Listen, all I'm hearing all stream, pick Tyreek Hill. Sam takes him.
He's 30% projected ownership according to Pat. I mean, that's
Yeah.
Anyways, I think like not as galbrain as Kenneth Walker, but I think like, going with Miami and Seattle guys, and then maybe hard fading like a team like Dallas or the Chargers, like we talked about earlier, I think is like kind of a easy way to get contrarian without actually sacrificing many points.
All right. I'll get us back on track. I'll put Travis Kelce in. Gretch, you're up next.
Woo!
Consigliere, he is not chalk. Not even close, buddy.
Yeah.
Not even close. Even if Tua plays, Tyreek Hill is not chalk.
The chalk is not picking a Dolphin.
There's no Dolphins anywhere near the chalk.
I'm gonna get us back on track as well. Type concept and take Diggs. If we're playing Burrow, we're playing Buffalo for 2 games. Probably Diggs Tyreek can go either way, frankly, and still be Diggs. Diggs.
Yeah. I think in a lineup like this, Diggs makes sense.
Yeah. But, I mean, we're off the board enough to take that.
Yeah.
And Josh Allen is going to be pretty – it's not like Diggs is going to be massively chalk with Josh Allen on the team.
All right. Got Pat's picking back to Hassan.
I'm good with it. Yeah, let's go Eckler.
Who do you want, Pat?
I'll go Eckler. I actually think that's
God
kind of
damn
fun.
it.
He's in a Bengals Super Bowl run, it's kind of nice if somehow the Chargers can upset the Chiefs, and then maybe we get Burrow Eckler as our conference championship. That'd be fun.
Do you know what you're being right now, Pat? Where is he? You're being a suck up right now. Is what you're doing, Pat.
Oh yeah, I'm being a suck up by picking the running back who scored the most running back points this year. What a suck up.
All right, Hassan, back to you.
There we go. Sorry, my internet's lagging. I was just curious. I wanted to get your guys' take. Christian Kirk.
Okay.
Wait. Just to back up, we do need to pick some fades, and we have Eckler, so the Jags would be a team high on the list.
Just let Hassan. There's other teams we can.
No.
This man wants Christian.
No. Because it was the second part of the question was, do you guys want to go Christian Kirk or do you want to go Deebo Samuel?
If we took Kirk, it would lock us into fading the Niners. It would lock us into picking.
Oh fuck! No,
man.
Deebo.
Seattle.
Yeah.
Deebo.
No.
Seattle.
Thinking about our fades.
It would lock us into having Seattle winning because we already have Diggs, Tyreek together.
Is not going CMC just overthinking it?
Oh
with
no, it's
Deebo?
probably a donkey move. Just go. Yeah, just go.
In
just
this
go CMC.
build, you could definitely eat CMC.
Go CMC. Yeah.
Let's go CMC.
All right, back to Drico.
All right. Studs and Duds, AJ Brown.
I feel like, again, did you guys hear my point about Walker in a 2R being better in a 2RB build? I feel like
I know
Actually,
it's
like
true, but
it is hard for him to get there as a third running back.
yeah,
well, not necessarily. You're
it's possible.
it's possible. You need him to outscore Saquon or something.
We could fade the Chargers full on. Well, I don't know what. Yeah, why don't we leave it for now and see what happens in the end?
Well, we need to pick someone from the Chargers and the Jags. We don't have a Jag.
That's true.
Yeah. All right.
We also don't
Sam.
have a Viking Giant yet.
We need a Viking and a Giant, and we need a. So we
I think
need
we
a,
should.
Cowboy. We don't have either of those either.
we need to pick one because we're fading the other. So that's.
I think we should go. I think we should continue eating chalk and go Jefferson.
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest Jefferson. We can definitely do him in this lineup. Where is he?
He's all the way at the top, maybe.
There he is. All right. So for the audio listeners, so far we have Joe Burrow, Kenneth Walker, Austin Eckler, CMC at running back, wide receiver, Diggs, Hill, AJ Brown, Jefferson, and Travis Kelce at tight end. Honestly, I think this is a good illustration of this is a fucking galaxy brain lineup for this contest. And I just listed off like what 7 top 20 players in the NFL for fantasy.
We just
points.
went to like the ESPN website and filtered for most fantasy points, and that's
Yeah.
the Galaxy lineup.
Well, because seriously, you go Kenneth Walker, are you crazy?
All right, what do we want to do with this Cowboys Bucks game here?
We got to pick one of them in the flex and somehow fade the other, right?
I think we can go see. I think we can eat CD on this lineup.
I'm fine with that.
Back to Gretsch for kicker defense.
Kicker?
Yeah.
Let's make this a full fade. Well, no, I can't make that decision on my own.
You could pick, I guess, the hard fade is your pick. I don't see why you couldn't.
You can pick the hard fade as your pick.
I'll pick the hard fade. Bucks.
The Bucks hard fades. Suck up and Bucks D are off the table. Pat's up.
So what do we have? We need a Jaguar. We need a
Giant.
Giant.
The Giant, or you make the you lock. Are you going to lock in the Ravens as your pick? The hard fade.
Roll the clip.
I kind of want to go Giants kicker.
All right, his name
There you
is
go.
Graham.
That's a good play.
Yeah.
Graham Batshit.
Yeah.
Okay. So then that leaves us, Hassan, back to you to put a cherry on top.
We can hard fade the Ravens. I think that they're not going to have Lamar.
Well,
Plus
we
got Burrow,
can't. We don't
so-
want to play Ravens D against Burrow.
No, we don't.
No, hard fade.
Yeah. Okay, so you're using the hard fade. You were passing the buck to Drico to choose between the Jags and the Tampa Bay defense.
We already hit. I think we already hard faded the
Hard fade.
Okay, so it's Jags.
Jacksonville defense.
Dricker
Yeah.
just chose the Jags defense.
All right. This
Or,
final lineup,
on me.
Burrow, Walker, Eckler, Diggs, Reek, CMC, AJ Brown, Lamb, Jefferson, Kelsey, Graham Gano, Jags, defense.
This is a sweet lineup. My only 2 cents is I think it's even better with Debo instead of CMC because I think of the Walker 2 running back thing fits pretty well. But I don't think we have to change that.
I think
I'd like it better with CMC because we're already to Burrow, and we just need Walker to outscore
all of the other receivers now too because he's a flex.
All of the Seattle receivers,
and you're also playing this.
Aren't you? You need him to outscore all the Bucs receivers. You need him to outscore
right.
Mark Andrews. You need him to outscore everyone. I think
I'm with Gretsch here. I think I like CMC to Debo because you almost want to play this as a Seattle upset with Walker, right?
You do, but I just feel like that's so unlikely that I'd rather just go.
We're in an extremely top-heavy contest.
What about switching Eckler to Keenan Allen? Is that a compromise or?
Well, you see here, Keenan Allen didn't help me win $2 million. So
yeah, Sam. Why don't you change someone else's pick, dude?
Although, I mean, we are playing the Jags faded, so
yeah, I like the Eckler part of that.
You're kind of playing the running back in the win.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying with Debo. I guess what is the chances that the Seattle actually wins? Like, do you want to play it that way, or do you want to play the chances that Kenneth Walker happens to outscore Mike Evans, Chris Godwin?
It's just if you don't have a third running back, you can play it as if the running backs are all score really poorly for the whole contest, which doesn't seem like.
Which is tough. Yeah, it's tough, especially if you don't have CMC and you're making that bet. I don't know. Yeah. I guess I'm saying about CMC chalk donkey, but
Yeah, I do think in my preferred world you'd pivot Eckler to Keenan, or as the Aaron suggests here, Walker to Metcalf.
See, I think CMC DK is sort of where.
Connor, do you have any thoughts? You were the one who selected Walker here. I don't want to undo your pick.
If we were going to do that, because Lockett's going to go really low owned as well.
Ooh, I like that.
I like Lockett quite a bit too.
Connor,
Lockett's.
I personally think the Walker DK Metcalf projection is probably super close. So, I mean, I honestly don't mind it. It kind of feels like a similar play in that you're saying that Seahawk is going to score good points, and I guess if you're feeling more comfortable in a kind of game script that Seattle get blown out or lose comfortably, DK obviously feels more comfortable in that. I do think though that one thing with the game script is that it's not 1-for-1. Like you do get players, running backs.
Yeah, that's true.
Who score
it's
points.
True. I do think though maybe the tiebreaker is that people are not going to use Seattle. Like people are going to be hard fading Seattle, so you can pretty much pick whoever you want and get the same leverage, and you can basically pick your preferred game script play.
I think Lockett will be someone that I'm arguing for pretty heavily this week in our stuff, just as arbitrage version of Devontae Smith and T. Higgins. And unlike those guys, there's a really good chance they only play one game. So you just need Lockett, who scores long touchdowns, to score a long touchdown.
Yeah. I do think Reek's ownership will be dependent on Tua's status. If Tua doesn't play, he will be much, much lower than 30%. What do you have Reek at right now, Pat?
We did get a little chalky just because of the early Walker pick.
And Burrow.
And Burrow.
What do we have Burrow at, Pat?
13.
I should also mention, so Pat, when are you going to post? Because you are, for anyone who's in the Ship Chasing Discord, Pat will share a spreadsheet with his ownership projections. And I will say, because, Pat won't brag for himself because he has enough bragging to do these days. But his ownership projections last year were just absolutely dialed
fantastic.
Yeah.
There was a
Yeah, I was low
couple
on Debo. That was the big one, but
You were a little low on Debo, and Fournette got ruled out very surprisingly for basically everyone in the contest, and everyone scrambled to get Fournette out of their lineups like very last minute, right? And so your number was high on him in the end, and it changed some of the Buck stuff and some of the math
Yeah.
with the running backs a little bit.
Yeah.
There was some fallout from the Fournette being a little high, but your numbers were awesome, and you tweak them throughout the week as we
tweak them throughout
talk
the
more
week.
and you think through it more. So if anyone like pulls them or copies them, make sure to check back in.
yeah. So I'll make it view only, but just make a copy of the sheet, and you'll have them. And then I just copy and paste every time I make an update. I'll just paste it in here, so it'll just stay updated. I just want to note Chipsy Lark's comment isn't pivoting from DK to Lockett like pivoting from Tyreek to Waddle, which he said was too much gal. To be clear, I do not think Waddle is too much gal. I just think that that's sort of the edge of the universe. And if you're beyond that edge, you probably have gone too much gal.
Yeah. If you're playing River Craft or whatever the fuck his name is, you probably have taken too much ayahuasca while building these lineups here. So we will be back tomorrow night. I don't know if we figured out exactly what we're going to do, but we are going to continue to dive into this contest. We will be back then on Friday night for our annual drunken shit show with Dink and Leone to finalize our lineups. And like Pat said, if you guys are YouTube members, you get access to the private Discord. Pat will share those ownership projections. Highly recommend hopping in that Discord. Everyone on this show has access in there. It's a very fun time. Steamed hams, Mr. Hassan, always in there mixing it up. And any other final words from you guys here before we sign off?
What a great contest this is.
Great
Yeah,
contest.
dude. We
Truly God's game.
we tried to make one lineup, and every pick we had like 8 ways we could go after.
It's
that.
so fun.
Yeah.
The simplicity is the best part.
It's a puzzle, and it's fun.
Yeah. Colin, so you become a YouTube member and then you join the Deposit Kingdom Discord, which I have the link down below. And then there's instructions in an FAQ. You sync your YouTube account with the Discord and it unlocks the channel. If you have issues, you can tag me in there. CB is already in the mix. Feel free to just tag me in the Discord. I'll make sure you guys get squared away, but all the instructions are there. We will be back tomorrow night at our usual time, 9:15 p.m. Eastern. Thank you to Drico and Sam, who did great work for us all year on stat chasing. Thank you for Hassan, who heads to the Sizzler Buffet for multiple meals to do research on the Boomer Opto. And we appreciate you guys. We'll see you
Can
tomorrow.
somebody show me how to open a PDF?